What about relativism? So just framing up the big open question about our relationship with China.
Sure.
There's trade discussions going on, but China this week it was revealed or announced has sold off half their Treasury US Treasury holdings. As you look at the technology curve in China, the fiscal situation, and the difference between the two, how much should our policy be informed relative to China, where we sit with China,
Sure.
versus forget about China, let's just make America great and focus on creating jobs and moving our industries forward?
Yeah, it's got to be a little bit of both, and it's always tough to strike the right balance. I mean, look, China is our biggest economic competitor in the entire world. When you look at their technology industry, I think that's the only tech industry, especially when it comes to things like AI, where they're even sort of knocking on the door of America. Now, I still think that we have the best hardware. I think that we have the best software. I still think that we're the most technologically forward economy. But our edge is not something we can sort of rest on our laurels. So I think it is useful to look to the Chinese to benchmark our own progress and to say that if we're regulating ourselves to death and allowing the Chinese to catch up to us, that's not something, frankly, we should blame the Chinese for. That's something we should blame our own leaders for having stupid policies that allow other countries to catch up to America. So it's a useful benchmark. But I still think fundamentally we have to take the attitude of, we want the world to be built, I think, on an American technology stack, not on a Chinese or some other country's technology stack. And if you're too focused on the relative comparison and not focused enough on just building and creating great things, I think that it can become a little bit of a crutch and a little bit of an impediment to focusing on your own stuff and doing your own thing. That's why we have a great AI czar here in David Sachs, but we're really focused on how does America just do as well as we possibly can. Yes, we want to stay ahead of China, but we want to stay ahead of everybody else because this is America and we want it to stay the greatest country in the world.
And related to that, does that mean American businesses should be allowed to sell into China, participate there as a customer market? And if so, in the trade negotiations, is there a push for parity so that American businesses can operate in China or elsewhere in the world as easily as those companies can operate in America?
Yeah, so as the president said, it's a bit of a balance, right? There are certain critical elements of our technology stack. There are certain critical technologies. We know that some Chinese firms engage in IP theft, so we don't want to give them our very best stuff because we're worried a little bit that they might steal it. But of course, there are certain industries that we want to sell into China. We actually want to broaden American workers' access to the world. And part of our frustration with China is, on the one hand, they steal some of our newest technology, and on the other hand, they don't let American-made products into their country. What we want to do is actually reverse that. We want to sell American-made products into China, but we don't want to allow them to steal our critical intellectual property. And we have to strike that balance in a much better way than not just the Biden administration, but better than the Obama administration and the Bush administration did too. But striking that balance is something I think the president's very focused on. I'm certainly very focused on, and we've now got a much better approach now than we have in a long time.